Welcome back to Search It Up with Sienna, where I use IMDb to discover and talk about all different types of movies and TV shows, and how the people in front of and behind the camera are all interconnected. I talk directly with the talent about their backstories and experiences on and off set, and what they're up to today. On my last episode, I spoke with writer and producer Gil Kennan about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Dan Aykroyd was Ray in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and he was one of the original cast members on Saturday Night Live. So on this two-part episode, I'm going to be talking about Saturday Night Live. And my first guest is David Wachtenheim, who produced the classic animated SNL shorts, TV Funhouse. David also talks about his work on the 2023 animation movie Leo with Adam Sandler, Bill Burr, and Cecily Strong, and on Schoolhouse Rock, Despicable Me, Hotel Transylvania 2, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my interview with David Wachtenheim. So I was wondering, what first interested you in animation?
I mean, I grew up watching cartoons all the time, and I grew up in LA actually. And every time somebody asks me that question, I say the same thing. I don't know, because I drew all the time. I was always drawing in my notebooks and just for fun. And for some reason, I never considered animation a career.
Oh, wow.
I knew about animation. Like I would get out books about how animation works and, animators and stuff and Disney. But for some reason, I never thought of it as a career until I was in college, and not even in college, but I went to art school and studied illustration. There were some animation courses, but I never took them. It was all about illustration and just pursuing my art. When I graduated, I was in school in New York, and I was going back to LA, and somebody that I knew said, "Hey, I know this guy who's in animation. Why don't you give him a call and maybe, who knows, there's a connection."
Yeah.
And I never considered animation until I spoke to this guy, and I thought, "Oh, this is interesting." And I got a job as a production assistant on a movie called Rover Dangerfield, which starred Rodney Dangerfield, who was a stand-up comedian. Is him as a dog. And I got my first job as a production assistant. I was working a lot with the directors. I was working in the background department and the effects department. And I was just asking a lot of questions and walking over to people's desks and hanging over their shoulders and watching them. And I thought, oh, this is an interesting career. And I was talking in the office one day to my friend who got me the job. And and I said, like, how can I learn animation? And we were talking. He said, there's some courses maybe at the union you could take. And then the director walked in, one of the directors, and my friend said, David is interested in animation. What do you suggest? And he said, well, if you are really interested, said, take 2 weeks, think about it. And if you're really interested, come back and I'll teach you. And I immediately wanted to do it, but I waited the 2 weeks that he said. And then I went to him and I said, I really wanted to learn this. And he gave me like private lessons after hours. He was giving me
Oh,
assignments
wow.
and stuff.
That's so
And
cool.
yeah, and everything I learned was really from him. And I kind of just started from there. Pretty much every time I animate today, it's what I remember from those very first few lessons,
Wow.
what he taught me, like just the real basics, and just everything is just picking up from other people. I mean, I feel sometimes like I never got a real full education, like in animation. Like I'm okay. I'm not like a master animator. I'm pretty good, but I feel like it's been a lot of trial and error and just learning on
Yeah.
the job. And yeah, so I didn't go back to school. I took like very short little CG animation course once, which
Uh-huh.
character animation, but that was just like, yeah, very, very, very beginner. But no, I
Yeah.
never really had a formal education.
And did a certain movie or TV show inspire you like with animation? Was there ever like as a kid or before you had these lessons that made you have an interest in animation because you saw like and you thought that animation was very good?
Well, I mean, I used to watch the Warner Brothers cartoons all the time, Bugs Bunny and
Yeah.
Porky Pig. I mean, those are my favorite. And I'd watch all cartoons, even if I didn't really like them. Like I'd watch Scooby Doo, but I really didn't like it. but I just watched it. But and just the Disney movies were every time a new Disney movie came
Yeah.
out, I'd go see it. And yeah, like one of the earliest movies I remember seeing in the theater, and I don't even know if it might have been a re-release, was the Aristocats. I remember my mom taking me to see the Aristocats, and I got like the album out of the library. And animation was I just always loved looking at it, but again, I never considered it as a career. And like there'd be like Popeye cartoons on TV in the afternoons. There was a kids show in the afternoons hosted by a guy named Tom Hatton, I think, in LA, that he would introduce Popeye cartoons, and then in between he'd do drawings. He was like an
Oh,
animator
that's so
himself, and
cool.
I learned how to draw Popeye from watching him
Oh
how to do
yeah.
it. Yeah.
I remember I've been to like Disney World before, and they have sometimes those like classes there where they just like teach you how to draw like
Right.
Mickey Mouse or something, but like how they do in like the old animation sketches.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always just been a part of my growing up. I always loved cartoons and animation, which I guess most kids do, but
Yeah.
I never put two and two together until I kind of fell into it. And yeah, it's been great.
And I'm a huge fan of Saturday Night Live. I was wondering if you can talk about how the SNL Funhouse came your way.
Well, I was working at a studio in New York, and Robert Smigel, who created the TV Funhouse, was working. He was a writer on SNL. Then he moved to the Conan O'Brien show as the head writer
Oh
producer.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
For the very first year of Conan O'Brien, they did an animated opening, and so it was done at the studio that I worked at. And then Robert Smigel had also done a commercial parody for SNL called Cluck and Chicken, which was a chicken restaurant, and about a chicken who describes getting chopped up for the chicken dinners. And then he went on to the Dana Carvey show, and he had this cartoon idea of the ambiguously gay duo. And so we did that for him for the Dana Carvey show, and then that got canceled, and he decided to go back to SNL with the idea of the TV Funhouse cartoons, and brought the first one, I think, was that one that we did for Dana Carvey. They aired on that. He started doing these cartoons, the SNL TV Funhouse cartoons for SNL, and so I was involved in all of them, kind of designing some of them, directing a lot of them, animating on most of them. And I left the studio I was working at
Yeah.
the time, and then started my own studio. And Smigel, about a year later, after I had left, had decided to the studio that I was at didn't want to do them anymore. And Smigel came to me and my partner Robert and said, "Do you guys want to continue on the cartoons?" And we said, "Yeah." So we took it over and we did them for another, I think, 6 years or so. So I think it was about, my dates are not good. Maybe about a total of 10 years that we worked on them.
It's actually interesting because when I was like researching about like what you've done and stuff, so Robert's Michael, so I met him last year actually because I'm involved in like the film and TV and production at my school or like the film festival we have, and he was there last year because he was helping out and like giving us feedback on our films and stuff, which was so cool.
Oh,
And
that's so funny.
yeah, and I like took me a second to put two and two together, and I was like, "Wait, he looks very familiar." I've seen, like I mentioned before, some of the TV fun houses, and they're such fun sketches to bring into the show and keep like the audiences involved and laughing. And what was your process in producing these sketches? And did you work with Rob Smigel as they were being written? Like, was it like who did you work with when creating these?
Yeah, basically the process would go is Robert Smigel would call me or my partner, and my partner is Robert Marinetti, so that's confusing when I say. But basically the process would go, and he would call and say, "Hey, I've got this idea for a sketch, for a cartoon," because there's a topic he wants to get involved with, or a particular guest host, and he'd say, "Can you guys do it?" And of course, we'd always say yes. The problem was sometimes we were supposed to have about 5 weeks to do them, which is already a very short schedule for like a 3 to 4 minute cartoon.
Yeah.
And we rarely got the full 5 weeks. We'd have maybe 3.5 weeks to do it or so, maybe 2 weeks. Our record, I think, is 4 days to do a cartoon. But basically, he'd send us the script and we'd get an idea of what it is, and we'd start storyboarding it. and then he would record the track, so he'd get cast members from SNL or other people involved to record the track. So we'd get the full track that was fully timed out usually. And at the same time, we're doing the storyboards and the character designs and sending it
Yeah.
to him and getting approval and back and forth. And once that's approved, we go into animation. And it was really just very quick and down and dirty. And we'd send him stuff as soon as we got back to view it. And I mean, back in those days, we'd ship stuff out to get it done to like a digital compositor and a
Yeah.
colorist, and then we'd get back videotapes. It would be in the mail because there was not we didn't even have online access to do any of that stuff, so it was all through the mail. And so we'd have to wait, for FedEx like the next day and then to get a tape, and then we'd show it to him, send it to him, and we'd get notes back. It was all very quick and very, very down and dirty. And we'd be making changes like right up until the last minute before air sometimes.
Wow.
It was very intense and a lot of hard work, and people were working around the clock, and it was really crazy, but it was a lot of fun. So it was really just us, and we hire animators that friends of
Yeah.
ours that we'd worked with for many years, and we just worked directly with Robert Smigel. And I think he had pretty much carte blanche to do what he wanted to do from SNL. He'd get the approval from Lauren of what he wanted to do, and then we'd
Yeah.
just go ahead and do it.
And did you have any favorite SNL TV Funhouse episodes or characters within them?
They were all pretty fun. I really liked the ones that were like parodying a specific style, like the Anatomicals. I don't know if you saw that. There's kind of a Yogi Bear. There's a
No, I
Yogi Bear
saw
escape.
I
Some of
saw
these might not be appropriate for you even at
yeah,
50. Like when I was
I
doing these, I had very young kids and I could never show them. They're much older in their 20s, and I think they barely started watching some of them. So,
I watched one with Mr. T.
oh,
Um, I watched one with a genie, and he was like, and they were like, "Oh, can you like help us from this guy?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'll keep helping." And then he was like doing like all these like gory things with it. And then I saw one with Bill Clinton and it was what's his name? Or not Bill Clinton. Maybe it was Jimmy Carter and Bob Dole, I think it was. Yeah.
oh, was it a debate or
Yeah, it was a debate, yeah.
that was Clinton? Yeah, Clinton and Dole.
Clinton and Dole,
Yeah,
yeah.
their debate. That was like this. That was I think the first one or the second one that we did.
Oh, wow.
Or after the gay duo, then we did one that was like a Larry King interview with uh, Ross Perot, who was running for president. And then I think that second one was the
Oh, wow.
old debate. Yeah. And I had designed those characters, and yeah, that was a weird one. Because after that we did like the characters were mostly, we tried to stay kind of realistic with the characters, and
Yeah,
that one was a little bit more caricatured. And that was
character yeah.
but yeah, those like the Shazang one that you're talking about, the genie, the big genie, that's
Yeah,
that cartoon from the 60s, a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. And
yeah.
the Anatomicals was based on a, like Yogi Bear. And then we did a Dora the Explorer parody.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So those are fun. I like just, parodying the things that existed already. But they were all a lot of hard work. And I think each one has its own stories and memories involved. But yeah, those it was quite an experience.
Yeah, and speaking of hard work, do you have an episode that you felt was most challenging for you that you can remember? Or if not like a single episode where the parody is more challenging than doing like a original normal one?
Probably that one that we did, which was in 4 days, which was there was a TV show called Are You Hot?
Mhm.
It was where people would go up on a stage and there was a panel of celebrities, almost like The Voice or
Yeah, yeah,
a show, but they would judge people on stage for how hot they were.
yeah.
If how they
Yeah.
looked and how they dressed. It was a horrible show. So it was that a parody of that, but it was all the people on stage were all like cartoon characters like Barney
Yeah.
Rubble and
Oh,
Ricky
okay.
Sam and like those kind of things. So it was difficult in that it was very short time to produce it, but it was easier because a lot of the characters were existing characters that were
Got it.
designed already. So, but it was a challenge just to get it done in that short amount of time.
And SNL recently did an animated sketch called God. I don't know if you saw with Timothy Chalamet on the it was like I think maybe it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And I was wondering if you think that maybe they'll be bringing back SNL TV Funhouse anytime soon.
I doubt it, only because one of the reasons why I think why we stopped doing it is because they were not cheap to do. They were kind of expensive.
Yeah.
And then when like Andy Samberg and the Lonely Island guys, I don't know if you're aware of those guys, they when they started doing these digital shorts, which
Mm.
was like digital song parodies and just
Oh, yes, I've seen some of those. Yeah.
they did one called Lazy Sunday, which was it blew up on the internet, as YouTube just like started then, and it became so popular and it was so cheap for them to produce. I think they just realized that it probably wasn't worth it to put money into the cartoons that were just more expensive and very popular, but not as crazy viral as these other videos
Yeah.
doing. So I think it was more of that. And I think now Robert Smigel went on to do other things, and I don't even know if he was asked to do more, if he would want to do it, or if we would want to do it. I think it's just
Yeah.
it's of a time, I just don't think it'd be worth doing anymore as far just financially.
Yeah, makes sense. And in addition to SNL, you recently did the movie Leo, which I love, by the way. It was such a great movie. And I understand that you started working on it during COVID. What was the experience like with that?
Yeah, that was interesting because we all live in New York. Me and my partner Robert Marinetti and Robert Smigel lives in New Jersey, and
Yeah.
that was going to be done in LA. So me and Robert Marinetti were going to be having to commute out to LA and
Oh, wow.
maybe stay there for a few weeks and come back for a few weeks. And we had done that before when we worked on Hotel Transylvania too, but
Oh,
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
very tough. So we did this we had this meeting in LA in February, right before COVID, and we did a table read with a bunch of the stars, the actors, and we had a meeting with Netflix, and we were talking about having to commute and all this stuff, and I said, like, it'd be great if maybe we could do like 2 weeks in LA and 2 weeks in New York, or something like that, so at least I could spend some quality time at
Yeah.
home. And the executives at Netflix were kind of like, well, we've tried doing remote work and we don't really love it, and I don't know if that'll work. And then a month later, 2 months later, COVID happens and everybody's working from home, and we just did the whole thing from home, and it was animation during COVID was really one of the few things in the in the industry that was able to stay afloat, because
Yeah, makes
everything
sense.
everything nowadays is digital and everything's
Yeah.
done on computer, and so people really were just able to work from home and just get equipment at home, and people who already worked at home, I had all my equipment already at home, and it just was pretty seamless to just kind of work all on Zoom, and it was hard not being with other people, but it worked out fine. Yeah, we did the whole thing pretty much on Zoom.
There's such a fun and interesting cast too, which I think probably added to, how great the movie was, like Bill Burr, Adam Sandler. Was there something that was most memorable about working with the cast on the movie?
I mean, the cast was amazing. Just working with such talented people. Cecily Strong was amazing. She was like a last minute addition to the table read
Oh,
even.
wow,
Yeah,
really?
she just the minute she read her first line, it was like gold, and she was fun to work with. Bill Burr was hilarious. He would just throw in little ad libs and things here and there. But I think the most fun, and besides just the great stars, was working with the kids, because
Oh, yeah.
the kids were really great. We really wanted to get kids that sounded real and
Yeah, makes
didn't
sense,
sound
yeah.
like they were acting.
Yeah.
That was a little bit challenging at times because they wanted to impress, as you may
Yeah.
know, being an actress and actor.
Yes.
They wanted to do, like they were kind of like being a little bit Broadway-ish, and we'd have to say, no, no, just take it down, be real. Just like, how would you say this for real? And that was really fun. They were just all the kids were really great. Working with the actors was really fun just to see how great some of them.
Yeah.
really talented people that we worked with. Yeah.
And the animation for that movie, which I noticed was very like specific in the way like the transitions were and even the way the characters were animated. Was there like a specific inspiration or idea behind that going into it?
We knew from the beginning that we wanted it to feel kind of real. Like,
Mhm.
you know, we didn't want it to be overly cartoony like
Yeah.
Disney or Pixar, which are, beautifully animated movies, but we didn't want to do things where we want it to feel like you're in a real environment. We wanted the kids to feel real and not just kind of caricature of kids or cartoons of kids. We wanted them to feel like real kids. And we knew that Leo was going to be old and slow. And so everything had to just feel really like small. Like we didn't want broad action. So that was a lot of the thinking, was that just to keep everything kind of more in the realistic and all the expressions and movement just to be more contained and just a little bit more genuine, and
Mhm.
not too outrageous unless we really needed it to for specific things. But that was the main inspiration.
I know you also worked on many other amazing projects, including Despicable Me, Hotel Transylvania 2, and even Schoolhouse Rock, which I actually love because my teachers in middle school always would play them sometimes for like
Wow.
Conjunction Junction or the preamble one. So I always remember those. So do you have a favorite project besides Leo or the SNL TV Funhouse that you've worked on that you love?
I think the Schoolhouse Rock. I mean, that's a good one that you brought up because that was a real. I mean, that was something I grew up on too.
Yeah.
Those were on TV, and I learned so much. A lot of I still remember the preambles of the Constitution.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that's exactly how I remember them.
yeah, and
Remember.
multiplication. I still think about all the multiplication rock ones that
Yeah.
when I worked on those that was just like very nostalgic to be able to be a part of that. That was
Mhm.
that was just a lot of fun. Just the really inspirational. And some of the earlier I I worked on there was a few in a previous studio that I worked on, and we worked with the some of the original character designers and the original directors and producers and then later when we worked with one of the original voices or two of the original voices. So that was just a lot of fun just to have, be a part of that history.
Yeah. Can you talk about anything that you're working on now?
Nope. No, I'm just kidding. Um, I'm doing some various things. I'm doing some storyboarding for some TV shows and
Very
just
cool.
doing some writing and pitching ideas and in talks to maybe a Leo sequel that's in the works. So
Very cool.
something coming up. I can say it because it's been in the news, so I think that's being discussed. So just a lot of different things, trying to get some other ideas going and some other.
Yeah. And do you have any thoughts on where the animation world is going, especially with AI becoming more and more popular and all of that?
Yeah, wow, that's a big subject. I don't know. It's frightening and exciting. I think
Yes.
there's a lot of fear in the industry that people will lose jobs because
Mhm.
of AI. And not that AI is so great, but that, I think for the short term, producers or studios might want to try AI and see what they can do with AI and try to see if they can cut costs by using AI. But I mean, so far what I've seen with it, it's interesting, but it doesn't have that human touch and that human
Yeah.
quality. I think you're really missing out something. It just feels cold and sterile and it can do a specific things, but you can't really be that creative and inventive. I mean, I think eventually artists and animators will use AI as a part of the process, but I don't think it's going to ever take over completely.
Yeah.
It'll just be a tool to
Mhm.
eventually use. And I don't even think right now it's really that great. I can't see huge uses for it. I mean, I've seen some amazing things that people have done, but I still think it's missing that specific
Yeah.
creativity, that human element that I just don't think can happen. But you never know. I mean, technology
Yeah.
changes and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. My last thing is, do you have any advice you would give to aspiring filmmakers or animators that are wishing to pursue this as their career?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to a lot of young people people call me all the time and say, "Oh, can you talk to my daughter or son who's in high school or college and they're interested in animation? Can you talk to them about it?" And I think the biggest thing I tell them is that it's not an easy job. It's not an easy
Hmm.
industry. I mean, as an actress, it's not
Yeah.
easy. There's a lot of competition,
Yes,
people
yes,
out there,
definitely.
a lot of projects out there, a lot of people vying for the same jobs. And I I would say, just if you really want to do it, then just know that it's going to be hard, but you can succeed, and just study and watch, look at animation and study other animators and art and take classes and just immerse yourself in it, and just know that it's going to be a hard road, but you can do it, and just stick to it. And if you really want to do it, you can achieve it. And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing. Because I know sometimes when I talk to kids and I say that, I hear I hear like the balloon deflating, and I hear like their dreams kind of flying out the window. Like they thought, oh, it's going to be hard, but it is. It's everything. Everything is hard in life that
Yeah, all great things
you
are.
want to
Yeah.
achieve, and nothing comes easy really, unless you're really lucky. And so, if you really want to do it, it's out there for the taking. And there's so many different avenues you could take for animation.
Yeah.
There's TV and movie and video games, and just private personal things, and there's just so much out there, in small studios and big studios, and production being done around the world. There's a lot out there, and there's always room for everybody, if you just have the will and the talent and the drive, and you can succeed.
Well, I want to thank you so much for doing this. I learned so much from you, and I had so much fun talking to you today.
Yeah, I did too. This was really great. It's a really great little show you have, and
Thank you.
thank you for including me. I'm really honored.
Of course, of course. I had the best time.
Oh, me too.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
It's gonna take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much, David. It was so cool to look back on some of the TV Funhouse episodes, and I absolutely loved Leo and can't wait for the sequel. Well, that's it for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 of this episode on SNL, where I'm joined by producer Lindsay Shookus. See you then!